Exploring Oklahoma's borderlands means facing landscapes shaped by forced migration, the 19th century oil boom, and the remains of old trade routes. Although this region is often identified through dry plains and wind turbine fields, its real cultural uniqueness lives inside the strange anomalies of its small settlements. Did you know that several Oklahoma towns preserve collective narratives that sit outside the logic of modern urban planning? This strangeness appears through provocative place names, towns isolated by time zone divisions, and toxic areas abandoned after massive mineral exploitation. This collection of settlements offers a social record of human eccentricity in America's interior. The most dystopian urban anomaly in the entire Midwest can be found at the northeastern edge of Ottawa County, where the most toxic ghost town in the United States stands in silence. This settlement, once home to nearly 10,000 workers, is now completely empty, with no legal domestic activity left. Yes, Picher is a victim of the glory of 20th century zinc and lead mining, which left behind toxic waste piles dozens of meters high around residential areas. Conditions worsened when the ground beneath the town was declared at risk of collapse because of a maze of underground mine tunnels dug without proper support pillars. In 2006, the Federal Environmental Protection Agency launched a mass forced evacuation program, bought all residents' properties, and permanently erased the town's administrative rights. Walking through Picher today presents a terrifying visual: leaning power poles, shattered house foundations, and giant gray waste piles that refuse to grow plants, creating a real post-apocalyptic atmosphere in the middle of the Oklahoma plains. Leaving Picher's toxic gray landscape, we cut toward the inland northwest of Beaver County, a dry area that holds a settlement with one of the most absurd names. Its name is Slapout, a small community whose population can now be counted on one hand. This odd town name came from a 20th century local joke about an old grocery store owned by a resident named Tom Lemons. The store was known for often running out of daily goods because it was isolated from major distribution routes. Every time a traveler or local farmer came to buy supplies, the owner would shake his head and shout in a thick rural accent, "We are clean slap out of it." The phrase was repeated so often that truck drivers began marking this area on maps as Slapout. Today, there is no active grocery store left here, only a rusty road sign along a commercial route that often makes interstate drivers slow down just to photograph the town's name. A naming story born from a spoken joke shifts here into a tense public debate. Slaughterville, a town whose geography is dominated by semi-rural housing and around 4,000 residents, creates unease for anyone seeing its sign for the first time. The town's name literally means City of Slaughter, a connotation often linked by horror movie fans to fictional mutilation crimes deep in the woods. The town's real history is actually far from that bloody impression, because the name was purely taken to honor James Slaughter, a successful sawmill owner who helped pioneer the settlement in the 19th century. In 2004, an animal rights activist movement filed an official petition to rename the town Veggieville to promote a vegetarian lifestyle. Local residents answered the petition with major anger and voted to keep their original name. Yes, this proves Oklahomans would rather live in a town that sounds like a butcher film location than lose their historical identity. If Slaughterville sparks debate over violent connotations, the town of Hooker in Texas County openly celebrates the oddness of its name. Located in the dry panhandle area, this settlement of around 1,800 people was named after a pioneer cattleman named John Hooker Threlkeld. The problem is that in modern American slang, The word hooker has a very specific meaning: a sex worker. Instead of feeling embarrassed or changing the settlement's name, local officials have turned this ambiguity into a joke commodity and a mass tourism marketing tool. The local sports team proudly calls itself the Hooker Horny Toads, while official town souvenir shops sell shirts with strange promotional slogans. Daily life here moves with a very conservative agricultural rhythm, an ironic contrast to the town's billboards. Leaving the desert region, we head south to the foot of the Wichita Mountains, where Medicine Park tells its strangeness through an unusual form of architectural geology. Founded in 1908 as Oklahoma's first planned resort town, this settlement has a small population of around 400 people. The absolute visual uniqueness of Medicine Park is that almost every building in town, from home walls and bridges to restaurants and city hall, is built using natural rounded stones known as cobblestones. Yes, walking through the corridors of Medicine Park gives the visual impression of being stranded inside a strange prehistoric village, separated from the standard wooden house aesthetic of America. Local residents maintain these stone properties under strict rules, creating an eccentric settlement pocket where modern concrete is treated as a violation of natural aesthetics. The visual anomaly of rounded stone then turns into an ironic geography adventure when driving toward the edge of Fort Cobb Lake in Caddo County. In this quiet dirt road intersection area, there is a place literally listed on the map as nowhere. The settlement is extremely small, practically consisting only of a bait shop that also serves as the lone gas station, which now rarely operates fully. The origin of this odd name began in the mid-20th century, when a married couple bought property in that isolated area and opened a store. Every time relatives called from the city to ask where they were, the husband would always answer, "We are in the middle of nowhere." That sentence was eventually legalized as the area's official identity. Meanwhile, the ghost town of Texola on the far western border of Beckham County suffers from a geographic identity crisis caused by state line mistakes. Standing along the remains of the legendary Route 66 asphalt corridor, Texola now has fewer than 10 permanent residents. History records that this settlement once shifted state jurisdiction 8 times between Texas and Oklahoma because of careless government land survey work in the early 20th century. Every time a new map was released with corrected coordinates, Texola residents woke up in a different state without ever moving their house foundations a single inch. This strange situation once caused confusion over tax administration and local marriage records. Today, Texola is a silent time capsule, where a small one-room stone jail stands empty by the roadside, giving off the atmosphere of a dead town exhausted by being toyed with by political borders. The political border dilemma in Texola reminds us of a much wilder and bloodier history in a lawless 19th century area now known as the ghost town of Beer City. Located at the very top of the no man's land corridor in Beaver County, this place was once a strip of land with no official government, claimed by no American state. This lawless status was used by bandits, gamblers, and smugglers to build an emergency settlement dedicated entirely to the illegal liquor trade. Beer City operated like a giant outlaw den in the middle of the prairie, where law was enforced through the barrel of a hunting rifle, and saloons stood side by side without health regulations. Today, not a single original Beer City building remains. Only quiet wheat fields stretch across the area, hiding old bullet casings and broken glass bottles inside the soil. The wild entertainment industry of Beer City's past transitions into a more orderly cultural obsession as we move toward Creek County, the location of Shamrock. Founded in 1908, during Oklahoma's first oil well boom, this town of around 100 residents was built by an Irish pioneer, J.M. Bolt. Driven by deep homesickness for his homeland, Bolt designed the whole town around Ireland's signature green color. Although the oil industry has long died out and left Shamrock as a sluggish small town, the remaining community still keeps the tradition of painting the main road markings bright green every year. The street signs in town are shaped like three-leaf shamrocks, and its main attraction is the ruin of Bolt's Art Deco gas station, painted in glowing green. If Shamrock is isolated by a cultural color preference, the town of Kenton at the western edge of Cimarron County is literally isolated by the system of time itself. Kenton is the westernmost settlement in Oklahoma, home to fewer than 20 people and surrounded by the ancient rock formations of Black Mesa. The absolute oddity here is its position as the only town in Oklahoma that officially uses Mountain Time. The entire state of Oklahoma operates on Central Time, which means when you step inside Kenton's limits, your watch must be turned back 1 hour from the neighboring regions. This decision was made consciously by local residents because their daily economic and logistical interactions are closer to towns in the directly bordering state of New Mexico. Kenton becomes a place where you can celebrate New Year's Eve twice just by driving 5 minutes outside town limits, a luxury of time manipulation born from the practicality of living at the edge of the continent. From time manipulation at Kenton's western edge, Pauls Valley celebrates strangeness through the preservation of mass-produced plastic toys. This small city of around 6,000 people is home to the Action Figure Museum, the only museum in the world officially dedicating its entire exhibition space to the history of action figures from superhero characters and pop culture. This eccentric museum stores more than 30,000 plastic toys from different eras, from original G.I. Joe figures from the 1960s to complete collections of modern Marvel and DC comic characters displayed in complex giant battle dioramas. The existence of this visually loud pop culture institution creates a very strange contrast in Pauls Valley, a city whose main street is still dominated by old 19th century red brick architecture and slow-moving freight trains hauling grain, proving that childhood imagination can be carved into a pillar of regional tourism. Meanwhile, the town of Barnsdall comes with a slightly different story. This town of around 1,000 people was born from massive oil exploitation on Osage Indian tribal land in the early 20th century. Barnsdall's spatial oddity, unlike anything else in the world, is the presence of an active oil pump, well standing 30 meters tall, rising directly in the middle of the asphalt on its main road. The oil well, known as the Main Street Oil Well, was drilled in 1914, before the area was paved into the town's main street. When the transportation route was developed, the oil company refused to move the well because its production volume was still very high, forcing the city government to build a split roadway circling the iron pump tower. Local drivers are used to maneuvering around this oil tower every day, a daily traffic routine that looks completely insane to modern road safety observers from outside town. Then there is a town called Cookietown in Cotton County, offering a form of strangeness rooted in the collective memory of sweet kindness in rural southern Oklahoma. This small farming community no longer has an active town government, leaving only scattered farm homes spread among wide cotton fields. The sweet name, Cookietown, came from the early 20th century when a local grocery store owner named Marvin Cornelius opened a business at the crossroads. Cornelius was known for his eccentric habit of always giving free cookies to every child who came shopping with their parents. Those children began calling the crossroads Cookietown, an oral identity that was eventually legalized on official state maps. Leaving Cookietown's sweet history, we head into the interior of the Comanche County Wildlife Refuge. Here stands the holy city of the Wichitas, projecting a Middle Eastern visual scene in the middle of the American prairie. Yes, this remote place is a complex of miniature ancient Jerusalem replica buildings, constructed entirely from local sandstone since 1926. The purpose of building this imitation city was very specific: to serve only as a natural stage backdrop for one of the oldest outdoor theater performances in the United States, The Prince of Peace, held every Easter. Outside that annual performance schedule, the Holy City stands as a quiet, empty town, where the gate structures of Herod's Palace and the replica of Calvary Hill rise among passing herds of wild bison. The journey through Oklahoma's eccentricity ends in Carter County, specifically in the small town of Autry, which carved its name into the history of global popular culture. This farming settlement was originally called Berwyn, before residents agreed to rename the entire area Autry in 1941 to honor the legendary Hollywood singing cowboy. The announcement of the town's name change was made through a national radio broadcast live from atop a passing commercial train car, making it the first settlement in the world named after an active film actor. Today, Autry preserves that identity through the operation of a local museum, which stores classic cowboy film memorabilia, standing as a real monument to the power of 20th century mass media over rural geography.